This is Saurabh, and you're listening to my favorite talk show, The Weekly Show with Aditya.
One thing I have learned over the past few months is that all about paranoia, statistics, and people fear. The last few months has not been really about the pandemic itself, but the narrative surrounding the pandemic as to how we can put fear in the minds of the people, even if they are not going to be affected by anything. Well, if it's in the mind, even if you don't have something, your mind will be destabilized so much. There will be so much paranoia, so much manipulation. After a while, you will feel that you have something. You have the common flu, which is beautifully disguised and given a novel name. That is all that matters. Give something as mundane as a flu or a bit of running nose or cough a over the top name, and everybody starts fearing it. That is what has happened over the past 4 to 5 months. And then add to it statistics. Statistics over the past 100 years have always influenced people. We have no idea how those statistics are actually generated. But generated they are, and more the numbers, the more armchair experts and empty experts talk about this, the more it puts fear in the minds of the common people. Then more this is talked about in the mainstream media, that is the traditional media, that is the print and electronic media, the more the people fear. If the discussion is around a certain event which may or may not be as dangerous as it is seemed to be, as it is created, the narrative around this is created to be so depressing that even the most stoic of minds is influenced by this. That is how the world functions. You want people to fear, you put the fear of statistics in them. In this context, let me read you this paragraph from the book The Black Swan. This paragraph says, empty suit problem or expert problem. Some professionals have no differential abilities from the rest of the population, but for some reason and against their empirical records are believed to be experts. Clinical psychologists, academic economists, risk experts, statisticians, political analysts, financial experts, military analysts, CEOs, etc. They dress up their expertise in beautiful language, jargon, mathematics, and often wear expensive suits. And the human mind is so fragile that we are willing to listen to these pseudo experts, these empty suits. And we are often fooled by the random data that is often generated. Right now, the debate and the discussion has been on austerity drive. Reduce your spending. Look at how we would spend, how we were casual about things which we have to be serious about now, like basic household chores. These kinds of discussion are nothing more than the arrogant minds that humans possess, the complex minds that humans are. It's not the event that creates doubts in human, it's everything that is surrounding the event that creates doubts in the minds of humans. And this has been happening for centuries, be it an economic event or a health event or any event which is the combination of both economic and health. And with this, I welcome you to episode number 221 on the 15th of June 2020. And with this, let's discuss how would two of the most complex characters created, that is, two of the most complex fictional TV characters ever in the history of TV shows created, would deal with this situation. At this time, by design and default, we are all germophobes. Now, the question is what and who is a germophobe? Mysophobia, also known as verminophobia, germphobia, germophobia, balisophobia, and bacteriophobia, is a pathological fear of contamination and germs. The term was coined by William A. Hammond in 1879 when describing a case of obsessive compulsive disorder exhibited in repeatedly washing one's hands. And this is what is happening right now when we see experts, pseudo experts, empty chair experts, empty experts, armchair experts, the media, the administration, everybody reiterate wash one's hands, wash one's hands. Why? Because there's the fear of contamination and germs. It's not only from the side of the normal people, it's from the side of the businesses. As we see businesses open, they reduce the number of people that can enter a certain mall or a certain restaurant. They also have a fear of contamination and germs. At this point, is it an OCD? Yes, it is definitely an OCD. The more we talk about this, the more we create this, the more we become misophobic, verminophobic, germophobic, germophobic, bacillophobic, and bacteriophobic. The pathological fear that we have created in our minds about contamination and germs. And if people think that this is a nightmare that has been going on for the past 4 to 5 months, then they have forgotten about two movies which are a moviegoer's nightmare. Franchises of Race and Dhoom are a nightmare. When I watched the three movies of Race, I felt as if this is a bigger pathological fear I am developing towards watching Hindi movies. Now what I have is called a Bollywood phobia. Plot that went nowhere. The writer's inability to add good stories means there were songs after every 5 minutes. This is what defines an Indian movie, whether it's from the south, north, east, west, whether we call it Bollywood, Collywood, or Tollywood. A 2 hour movie became a 160-minute nightmare and horror. It completely made a mockery of what is supposed to be a genuine action movie. The movie Race, where was the plot going? What was happening? What were the subplots created? The subplots inside the subplots, they were more perplexing than what is happening right now. And if you ask the question, why did I watch the movie? It's simple. I am a movie critic. I am a film critic. I'm supposed to watch the movie and tell you which movies not to watch. Though these movies came a long time back, 12 years ago, this franchisee started. But if individuals who are on binge watch want to watch something good, avoid watching such movies. Or if you want to watch, skip the songs, because there will be songs after every 5 minutes highlighting the inability to write a simple, straightforward plot. A deliberate method to make the plot complex, to make the watchers think what is happening, where is the movie going, why is such a scene being added, what is the logic. You have a certain protagonist with one side, and then the protagonist suddenly changes colors like a chameleon and is on the other side. And then how slowly the scenes are revealed, the story is revealed right in the end. In this context, those individuals who are avid followers of Bollywood movies, who cannot see anything wrong being said against Bollywood movies, well, I'll tell them, if you compare them to the Fast and Furious franchisee, at least in that 140-minute movie, there was no diversion, there were no unnecessary songs, there was a story. Yes, there were fast cars being blown up, a few scenes which you felt were unnecessary. No. Yes, no movie is perfect, but if you compare the Dhoom franchisee, the Race franchisee, and the Fast and Furious franchisee, I rather watch the Fast and Furious movies again and again than dealing with the nightmare called Race and Dhoom. They are bigger nightmares compared to what is happening right now, compared to the germophobes being created right now, the pathological fear that is created about contamination and germs, and the OCD of repeatedly washing one's hand. What better example of a germophobe in the fictional world than the character of Sheldon, who exhibited all that is needed today, right from the fact that he would disinfect his hands after shaking hands with someone else. The character's pathological fear of germs, OCD about washing hands. Could there be a more prominent example of a germophobe in the fictional world than Sheldon? Well, people will ask me, aren't there better comedy TV shows than The Big Bang Theory? They will defend the TV show Friends. Well, let me tell you, if you really want to compare Big Bang Theory versus Friends versus other TV shows, for me, Big Bang Theory will always be number one. And I have my reasons. Let me tell you what are my reasons. In the Big Bang Theory, yes, it's a 20 to 25-minute TV show. It may look like a very mundane, irregular kind of a plot where four scientists come together, they play games, they are most of the time limited to going to their workplace, going to the comic book store, and then going back home, or playing fantasy games, watching sci-fi shows. There were also underlining plots where the writers added the concept of bullying, the relationship of the characters with their parents when they were young, how they were bullied at home or how they were bullied at school, and how they became geniuses when they shut themselves in the room and read all day. Nothing novel about it, yes, but despite these subtle ideas being proposed, or the idea of bullying, idea of what we call awkward socializing human beings, where these four individuals are unable to understand the basic social norms. Well, it doesn't happen in real life. It's of course exaggerated, but still, whatever percentage happens in the real world, the way the writers created the stories around this plot, how these characters took refuge in playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, how they were interested in playing video games, then going outside and going beyond their social circle, how their social circle was limited to meeting with fantasy and fictional pop culture stars. Despite all this, the nature of Big Bang Theory is such that despite all these serious moments, they keep the entire 20 minutes light-hearted. This is where the TV show Friends fails. It gets too serious right in the middle of an episode. You have no idea why the characters get serious, why they make a big deal out of nothing, why they make a mountain out of a molehill about relationships, about the most mundane of discussions, just because the Friends came at a time when the internet was not really prominent, it was still being developed. There was no pseudo media, that is, the Twitters, the Facebooks, and the conversations that emerge around it. Yet, the Friends has a lot of flaws. It's a flawed TV show. It's not the perfect TV show. It's difficult to watch because if it's in the comedy genre, it does not keep with the comedy genre compared to TV shows like That 70s Show. That's a different plot, but at least they keep that thing going despite the nature of bullying or limited to a social circle. Well, that's the common theme of all these four TV shows, that you are limited to your friends. What is the definition of friends in the 20th, 21st, and the 22nd century? Well, that I leave it to the wisdom of my listeners. Coming back to the idea of a germaphobe. Now, let's imagine what would Sheldon do in this time if he was a real character and this world had been struck by this pandemic, for which it's often called making mountain out of a molehill. In fact, the question is, what would Sheldon and the fictional Dr. House, do? Their characters were created such that they are limited to a certain social circle. They do not go beyond that circle, so they would not meet too many people. That is, Dr. House is limited to his colleagues at the fictional hospital. Sheldon and his friends, that is the Amy's, the Bernadettes, the Howard, the Raj, are limited to their social circle. Would they meet? Well, if they are not meeting in person, they would meet online. Remember, they also play online video games. And then in the TV show, we have seen how Sheldon has a pathological habit of washing his hands and making sure that he stays away from infected people, or the fears that he might get infected from his friends or his co-workers. Well, Sheldon and Dr. House, being the characters they are, being the characters that were created, would love this awkward social situation where we are unable to meet people. Well, we are told to stay at home because there is the fear of contamination and germs. That is, we are germophobic, mysophobic, bacteriophobic, bacillophobic, and whatnot. But then they are fictional characters, but the most important feature of these two individuals were that they had the little bit in their flesh of what real people do. Won't be a surprise if the upcoming generation become germophobes. Germophobes are people who are preoccupied or even obsessed with cleanliness, germs, and infectious diseases. And that is what we are seeing right now. Outside, every organization is obsessed with cleanliness. Social distancing is becoming an obsession, not a lifestyle. I said in the 185th episode or before that this is a lifestyle. For me now it's an obsession. It's nothing more than an OCD. There is the presumption that since individuals are at home and the whole work from home debate has started, which I shall discuss in a different episode, but the one effect of being at home and being a germophobe is that we feel that the door handles, the mobile phones, every surface is infected by default, and then we clean it. Do you remember the scene from Macbeth where Lady Macbeth says, What need we fear who knows it, when none can call our power to account? Yet, who would have thought the old man to have so much blood in him? Come out, damn spot, out, I command you. Is it an OCD? Yes, it is an OCD. Are we becoming germophobes? Well, it's not that difficult to induct the idea of germophobia in people when you keep reiterating stay away from services. Op-eds in newspapers talk about this. They keep on saying social distancing, don't touch infected surfaces, stay home, reiterating this through advertisements, through pseudo celebrities. When celebrities talk about this and they act so convincingly in this that we tend to believe them, because that is the nature of human beings. When we listen to pseudo celebrities, armchair experts, empty experts, human mind is fallible enough to believe them, and that is the way things work. Stay away from people, otherwise, you will be contaminated. We may or may not be contaminated, but it's all in the mind. And when the mind says you are not well, even our body collapses to our mind's wishes. In this situation, Dr. House and Sheldon would have loved to exploit this. They would have said, I told you so. Keep reading words like survivor's guilt. What is the right way to talk to people on social media? This is what we are being taught. How to talk in an ethical manner on pseudo media. Do I bother about that? I'm not even on these pseudo media sites. Well, in a way, I am, but I don't get affected by what the hashtag is. I do not have an OCD for social media. Of course, the debate around spending less because of reasons which we all know, which I will not go into, but the fear has been created. One thing leads to another, like a domino effect. Let me read you this paragraph. With the pandemic taking its toll on our finances, cutting down on unnecessary expenses has become an absolute necessity for many. For me, it's an absolute obsessive compulsive disorder. If you are among those who have to scale back on discretionary spending, whether that is shopping, travel, or something else entirely, it's a strange, vicious circle. If people don't consume, then how can we complain about industry not picking up speed? How can we say that the GDP is not picking up? If I don't buy something from the market, whether it is online or offline shopping, the particular shop is forced to close, means the employees are let off, or as the word says, furloughed. Then these very employees look to the administrations for some kind of benefit. Then the government is forced to take measures to make sure that nobody is unemployed. So it is a vicious circle. You take out one factor and it completely destabilizes that circle. I am no economic expert. I don't need to be an economic expert to say that it is a vicious circle. If I buy a book, in that case, it not only helps my knowledge in buying the book, it adds to the finances of the publishing house, to the author, to the bookshop which sells the book, to the middle people called Amazon, to the individual who is the delivery person. It helps everyone. It helps everyone in their finances. It's such a simple discussion. Yes, if X doesn't have enough money to buy, then yes, you buy less. But you should not stop buying unless it is unnecessary. What is unnecessary? At this point, nobody knows the definition between unnecessary and necessary. Well, the only unnecessary time spent is time spent on pseudo media. If people really want to cut back on something instead of cutting back on expenditure and buying products, whether they are unnecessary or necessary, I leave it to the discretion of my listeners and others. But at this time, the only unnecessary thing is on the pseudo media. Don't look at Twitter hashtags, don't look at Facebook articles around this topic. Avoid these websites, or if you want to go on these websites, just log in for 2 minutes and log out. You don't have to spend time on this. Social media is not the solution to the anxiety of being at home. First of all, remove terms such as anxiety and depression from your dictionary. Such terms are not even real, they are made up. Terms like depression, anxiety, created to benefit a few individuals. Who are they? That is not critical at this point. But stop thinking about terms such as anxiousness, depression, and others. Stop cluttering your mind with such terms. There is obviously an emotion surrounding being at home. That's a different topic for a different day. First of all, why do I need to be worried about what is happening on social media, and why is there an OCD to answer everything, and why is there this obsession that if I start arguing with someone because 90% believe in that topic and 10% do not agree with that certain event, it doesn't mean that the 10% are against humanity or against things in general. This is the biggest flaw of social media. The way people are mocked, the way we are mocked, the way our intelligence is mocked on social media, we presume that if there are 10,000 tweets on a certain topic, that topic is popular. Well, that is absolute hogwash. I would not associate myself with the word expert because the term expert is subjective. Enough of this debate. Let's do something different. As I said, I will read one chapter from the book Sacred Games. Let's start that now. Chapter 1, Policeman's Day. A white Pomeranian named Fluffy flew out of a fifth floor window in Panna, which was a brand new building with the painter's scaffolding still around it. Fluffy screamed in her little lapdog voice all the way down like a little white kettle losing steam, bounced off the bonnet of a Cielo and skidded to a halt near the rank of schoolgirls waiting for the St. Mary's convent bus. There was remarkably little blood, but the sight of Fluffy's brain did send the conventiers into hysterics, and meanwhile, above the man who had swung Fluffy around his head by one leg, who had slung Fluffy into the void, one Mr. Mahesh Pandey of Mirage Textiles. That man was leaning on his window and laughing. Mrs. Kamla Pandey, who in talking to Fluffy always spoke of herself as Mummy, now staggered and ran to her kitchen and plucked from the magnetic holder a knife 9 inches long and 2 wide. When Sartaj and Katekar broke open the door to apartment 502, Mrs. Pandey was standing in front of the bedroom door, looking intensely at a dense circle of 2-inch long wounds in the wood, about chest high. As Sartaj watched, she sighed, raised her hand, and stabbed the door again. She had to struggle with both hands on the handle to get the knife out. Mrs. Pandey, Sartaj said. She turned to them, the knife still in a double hand grip, held high. She had a pale, tear stained face and tiny bare feet under her white nightie. Mrs. Pandey, I am Inspector Sartaj Singh. Sartaj said, I would like you to put down that knife, please. He took a step, hands held up and palms forward. Please, he said. But Mrs. Pandey's eyes were wide and blank, and except for the quivering of her forearms, she was quite still. The hallway they were in was narrow, and Sartaj could feel Katikar behind him, wanting to pass. Sartaj stopped moving. Another step and he would be comfortably within a swing of the knife. Police, a voice said from behind the door. Police! Mrs. Pandey started as if remembering something, and then she said, Bastard, bastard, and slashed at the door again. She was tired now, and the point bounced off the wood and waked across it, and Sartaj bent her wrist back and took the knife easily from her. But she smashed at the door with her hands, breaking her bangles, and her last wiry burst of anger was hard to hold and contain. Finally, they sat her down on the green sofa in the drawing room. Shoot him, she said, shoot him. Then she put her head in her hands. There were green and blue bruises on her shoulder. Katikar was back at the bedroom door murmuring, What did you fight about? Sartaj said, He wants me not to fly any more. What? I am an air hostess, he thinks. Yes, she had startling light brown eyes and she was angry at Sartaj for asking. He thinks since I am an air hostess, I keep hostessing the pilots on stopovers, she said, and turned her face to the window. Katikar was walking the husband over now with a hand on his neck. Mr. Pandey hitched up his silky red and black striped pajamas and smiled confidently at Sartaj. Thank you, he said. Thanks for coming. So you like to hit your wife, Mr. Pandey? Sartaj barked, leaning forward. Katikar sat the man down hard, while he still had his mouth open. It was nicely done. Katikar was a senior constable and an old subordinate. A colleague, really. They had worked together for almost 7 years now, off and on. You like to hit her and then you throw a poor puppy out of a window and then you call us to save you. This is where I end right now, and I will continue the story in the next episode. This ends episode number 221 on the 15th of June 2020.
For more awesome content, tune in to the next episode of the weekly show with Aditya.